The average law school raised its LSAT median by almost a full 2 points in a single year. Out of roughly 196 law schools in the country, only three of them dropped their LSAT median. Everyone else held steady or went up. And so, if you're thinking of your target score based on last year's numbers, or your school list is based on that, or you think I can get in based on a certain number, I need you to hear this. That number is already old. The bar moved while you were studying, and almost nobody applying right now has actually done the math on what this means. Here's what I want you to stick around for. Every number I'm about to hit you with might sound like bad news, but it's not. There is one way you can take control of this situation. You have the power in your hands right now. I'm going to share with you the details in just a minute. Let's start with the 170 LSAT number. 28 law schools now post an LSAT median of 170 or higher. Last year, 10 years ago, that number was only 5. So 5 schools 10 years ago, 28 law schools today. And so it has nearly 6x'd in just 10 years. Now, think about what this does to the typical applicant. You walk in with a 168, which is a phenomenal score, to be frank. Top few percent of everybody who takes the test. But at 28 law schools now, you're now sitting below their median. A 168 used to open doors, but at those schools, it's now the number they're trying to pull their average up from. Now, applicants didn't just tick up this past cycle, they surged up 50% over the past 2 years. But of course, you only have the same law schools, roughly the same number of seats, and 2x, 50% more the number of people fighting for them. It's a totally different game than it was for your older siblings, your family and friends a couple of years back. Now, more than 75,000 people applied to at least one law school this past cycle. The norm over the past 4 years was around 59,000. And so about 16,000 extra applicants showed up in 1 year. And it's not just more of the same people. There are more first-gen applicants, the ones who used to feel like they were coming at this from outside the usual pipeline. That number jumped 38% in a single year. Now, the GPA side is also pretty bad as well. 27 law schools brought in a class with a median GPA of 3.9 or higher. 10 years ago, only 2 schools were doing that. It was just Yale and Chicago. But your 3.8 GPA, the one you killed yourself for, it felt like a lock. At 27 law schools, it's now below the middle of the class. And for most of you, that's already done. You can't go back and redo sophomore year. That number is frozen in time. Now, the medians I just gave you are actually last year's numbers, of course. This applicant cycle is not over yet. The people who study this for a living are telling applicants to assume schools are aiming for a full point higher than that this cycle. So the target isn't the number you see on the 509 report, it's the number above it, which means your safety school quietly became a target, your target quietly became a reach. Nobody notified you of this, of course, until now, I am. But the list you built back in the fall might be aimed at a tier too low, and you would never even know until the rejections came in. Now let's widen it out a bit so you can see the bigger picture. 91 law schools now post a median of 160 or better. 10 years ago, that number was 49. And so while it was true in the past that a 160 was a solid score, that's a decade out of date. Across that same stretch, the average school added 5 full points to its median. The school that took a 158 back then now wants a 163 for the same seat. Now, Yale Law School admits about 4 out of every 100 people who apply. That's a 4% acceptance rate, the lowest in the country. And there are 7 schools that admit fewer than 1 in 10. And so when you hear the term reach school, you've got to know what that means at the top. This is essentially a lottery. Even the applicant with a perfect application is buying a ticket. Now, the median a school brags about only counts the students who start there as 1Ls. Transfer students don't count. And so a school can admit a wall of high scorers to post a gorgeous median, then quietly refill the back of the class with transfers whose numbers never show up in the report. Georgetown, for example, plays this game beautifully. They took in 120 transfers last fall, the most in the country. And so the number you're being measured against is propped up on purpose, and you're still getting judged against the propped up version. And you can't wait it out by hoping schools just add more seats. They already did. First year enrollment hit over 42,000 students, up almost 8% in 1 year and 13% over the past 2 years, which means the schools are cramming in as many applicants as they can, which means the pressure valve is basically used up. And there is a back end to those swallowing classes. I'll be straight here. Law jobs are actually strong right now. The class of 2024 hit a record 93% employed. That is the best in history, and 84% landed jobs that required passing the bar. So law is not a dying field. Anyone telling you law is a dead end is selling you something. But the schools just packed the biggest first-year classes in almost a decade, right as AI starts doing more of the entry-level work new grads used to learn on. So the class starting now, the class of 2028, is the one that gets squeezed if hiring so much as wobbles, because there are simply more graduates walking into the same field. Now let's talk about money, because this is where it turns from stressful to expensive. The federal government just capped grad school loans at $50,000 a year. The average all-in cost of law school is running around $82,000 a year. So do the math. There is a gap of more than $30,000 a year that federal loans no longer cover. Now, you can fill that gap in one of two ways. There's private loans, which require strong credit or a cosigner, and they're getting harder to land, or you've got scholarship money. And scholarship money is based more on one thing than anything else, which is your LSAT score. You can see this in the scholarship numbers in the ABA 509 reports. The average scholarship a school hands out is about $24,000. There's also full rides. A little less than 7% of students get full tuition or more, so the money is real, but it's concentrated. And it goes to the applicants sitting above a school's median. If you've got a below median application, below median LSAT or GPA, you're not risking rejection, but you are risking rejection, but you're also potentially setting yourself up to pay sticker price. And that price is climbing, by the way. Private law school tuition is up more than 32% since 2015. If you adjust for inflation, public law school costs over 5 times what it did in the 1980s. And so if you're waiting a year to apply, you're increasing your tuition that you'll be liable for at the end of it. Now, one more thing on the GPA ceiling. 72 schools now bring in a class with a 375 median or higher. 10 years ago, it was only 18 schools at that median or higher. So the number of schools where your GPA has to be near perfect just quadrupled. And the ceiling keeps climbing. The highest LSAT median in the country right now is a 175. Yale's 75th percentile LSAT is a 177. And so they're pulling up every tier above it, underneath it as well. The whole ladder is rising. And so here's what you want to do with all this. I want to give you practical advice. Pull up any school you're thinking about, look at their 509 report, find the 2025 LSAT median, the one they just reported, then add a point to that. That is the real target for this cycle, because that's where the school is aiming with all these new applicants in the pool. If your score is at or above that adjusted number, you've got a real target to attend that school. If you're a point or two below it, treat it like a reach and build your school list accordingly. So that one move, adjusting every median up by a point, is the thing almost nobody applying right now is doing, and that's why so many people are about to get surprised. Now, I know that a lot of you are already reaching for the escape hatch. You want to skip the LSAT, take the GRE, dodge the whole thing, and I want to knock out that plan for you. This fall, barely 1% of law school applicants who got in with the GRE. That was only about 531 students in the entire country, and that number actually fell 24% from last year. So the GRE door is actually swinging shut right now. It also knocks out any scholarship negotiation leverage you have, because your scholarships are based on your LSAT, not the GRE, because the GRE doesn't help with the schools with their US News rankings. Same deal with that newer option, the JD Next. It sounds like a way around the LSAT, but while 30 law schools out of 200 took it this fall, they enrolled a grand total of 127 students nationwide, most of them in single digits per school. That's a rounding error. It's insignificant. For basically everybody looking at 509 law school reports who wants to go to an accredited law school, the LSAT is the best way in. And that's good news for you. I'll share why in a minute. But go back through everything I just said. The applicant surge, you don't control that. The $50,000 loan cap, you don't control that either. Your GPA for almost all of you, it's already set in stone. The number of law school seats, you can't control that either. But there is one number in that entire list you still can change, which is the LSAT. That is the one thing still left after everything else got taken off the table. In a cycle where almost everything got harder and almost nothing is in your hands, the LSAT is still the single biggest variable you can still move. And it happens to be the one that moves everything else. It moves which schools are realistic for you, decides whether you land above or below the median. It moves the scholarship offer that separates graduating with debt versus graduating with no debt. So the same fact that makes this cycle brutal is the thing that hands you the advantage. When the bar is jumping a point a year and everybody else is panicking or aiming lower, the person who actually raises their score walks into a field that just thinned out at the top. Harder for the crowd is easier for you if you prepared. And if you want my help getting into better law schools, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free LSAT tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference on everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Again, links below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. Now, the federal government just capped what you can borrow for law school at $50,000 a year. The average law school now costs $82,000 a year all in. So do that math, and there's a gap of $32,000 a year the government just stopped lending you. Now, here's the part that sounds backwards. That cap might be the best thing that's happened to a smart applicant in years because it just made one number the whole ballgame, and it's a number that you can actually move. I want to show you why the sticker price on every law school website is basically fiction. Starting this past July 1st, the Grad Plus loan is dead. That was the federal loan that let you borrow all the way up to the full cost of attendance with no ceiling. The Department of Education confirmed it, and the One Big Beautiful Bill Act killed it for new borrowers. So the loan that quietly funded the whole law school price machine just disappeared. What's left is a hard cap, $50,000 a year for new law students. That is the entire grant from the federal government now. But there is also a ceiling on the ceiling. Across your entire law degree, the federal cap tops out at $200,000 a year, $200,000 for your life. If you push past the cost of attendance, there's no federal loan waiting to catch you the way there used to be. The bottomless option is gone. What fills the gap now is either a private lender or a scholarship, and only one of those doesn't charge you interest. So look at the hole that leaves, $82,000 a year in cost, $50,000 a year from the government. The gap is more than $32,000 every year for 3 years running. Call it $96,000 you've got to cover some other way. And there are only two ways to cover it. You've got private student loans, which means a credit check and usually a cosigner at rates that don't care about you, or scholarship money. Those are the two options. Now, the median law grad who borrows walks out owing $112,500 for law school loan. Add undergrad, and the median climbs to more than $137,000. That is from the American Bar Association's own Young Lawyers Division survey, and 85% of law students borrow something. So picture that as being a monthly payment. On a standard 10-year plan, $112,000 runs you well over $1,200 a month for a decade, and it gets worse. $82,000 a year is the all-in cost of attendance, covering fees, rent, food, the whole thing. Run it for 3 years. That number is about $246,000 to become a lawyer, $250,000. And that's just the money you spend. Nobody counts the money that you don't earn. 3 years in law school is 3 years you're not working a real salary. Even at a modest $50,000 a year, that's $150,000 in income you gave up to sit in class. Stack that on the borrowing, and the true price of the degree is way past that sticker. Law school costs you twice, what you pay and what you missed. Now, law school didn't always cost this. In 1985, the average private law school charged about $7,500 a year. Adjust that for inflation, and it's around $23,000 today. The actual average private tuition in 2025 was just under $60,000. That's more than double what inflation alone would explain. Now, the flip side. Law schools do give you real money. The average school's median scholarship is $23,900 a year. Over 3 years, that's more than $70,000 off the top. The catch is who gets it and why. Almost nobody pays full sticker. 79% of law students get some grant money just to show up. Fewer than 1 in 5 actually pay the number on the website. So when a school advertises its price, treat it like a window sticker on a car that nobody actually pays. The real price is a negotiation. Forget the sticker price. The number that actually decides your life is the net price, what you actually pay after scholarships. Imagine 2 students at the same school, same classes, they could walk out $180,000 apart across 3 years. The difference is entirely who negotiates from a position of strength. Now, there's something else buried in that debt number. Federal law school loans are unsubsidized, which means they charge interest from the day the money hits while you're still in class. And so the balance grows before you ever make a payment. Borrow 6 figures over 3 years, and with interest piling up the whole time, you're paying back not $100,000, you're paying back closer to $130,000. Now, you cannot walk away from this debt. Student loans are about the only debt bankruptcy will not erase. If you lose the job, you hate the career, change your mind, the loan doesn't care. And only about 7% of law students get a full ride scholarship or better. So if your plan is that I'll just get a free ride, the odds are that you won't. It's all based on the strength of your numbers. Now, about 36% of law students, more than 1 in 3, get half tuition or more off. That's an easier target to hit. Half tuition at a real law school is $30,000, $40,000, sometimes $50,000 a year back in your pocket. And these offers compete. You can negotiate with them. A better number from a peer school is a bargaining chip. You take it back to your first choice and ask them to match it. And schools do that all the time. But you've got to ask, and that is only working if your file is strong enough to pull 2 real offers to begin with. If you don't have the offers, you don't have the leverage. Now, those private loans filling the gap, they're not federal. There's no income-driven safety net, no forgiveness down the line. The rate is tied to your credit, and you've got to have a cosigner in many cases. So what do you do with all this? You negotiate from a place of strength based on your numbers, your LSAT score and your GPA. The thing is, your GPA is typically pretty fixed at this point in time. You can't redo undergrad, but your LSAT score, you've got room to move the needle on that significantly. More on that in a bit. Now, law school, lawyer employment is actually pretty good these days. The NALP found the class of 2024 hit a median starting salary of $95,000 with a record 93.4% employed. So the legal field still pays. But lawyer salaries are not a nice bell curve. There are 2 humps in that data. More than half of new lawyers start between $55,000 and $100,000. Then a second spike way over on the right at $225,000. That's big firm money. Almost nobody earns the average in between. You're either in the 200K club or the 70K club with a big gap between them. Now, whether law school is a smart deal or a money trap comes down to how much you borrow and which hump you land on. If you borrow 200K and you land in the 70K crowd, that's the trap. If you borrow only 60K and you land anywhere, you're going to be okay. The debt is the variable that you control the most. But everything I just walked through, the cap on the loans, the debt grad plus loan, the sticker price tuition, the 2-hump salary curve, all of it points in the same direction. The people who win law school aren't the ones who got in, they're the ones who got in cheap. And your LSAT score is what decides how cheap. Schools buy high scores because those scores prop up their rankings, and they pay real cash for them. A score a few points above a school's median doesn't just get you in, it gets you scholarship money, sometimes half tuition, sometimes a full ride. So a few points is not just getting in, it's real money. It's getting you above the median to get 6 figures or more off your tuition across 3 years. You could be in the same seat, get the same diploma, take the same classes. One applicant pays sticker, the other gets paid to attend. The only difference on the page was the LSAT score. And if you want my help getting your LSAT score up, getting into better law schools, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference on everything logical reasoning and reading comp. You can grab that at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. In the meantime, all the best. Take care. Thanks for joining.